Was it last Tuesday?
Yeah. All right. We are back. So I don't know how much of it got cut off, but we're wrapping up the situation in Seattle. It sounds like Chris Carson's probably going to play, right? But if there's a chance he doesn't, Alex Collins might be interesting and has a super low own rate. So I guess proceed with caution on that one.
Yeah, I think if you have Chris Carson, you should be making it a bit of a priority to pick up Alex Collins, just because of Chris Carson and his history, his long list of injuries that he's dealt with over his career. Take that with the effectiveness that Alex Collins has, just how good he's been for them and the little bit of work he's got. I think you should be picking him up if you have Chris Carson, and even if you don't, Alex Collins isn't a bad stash either, because you just never know, especially with Carson being banged up. Like I said, expect him to play, but for what it's worth, I would be adding him. I mean, Seattle is always, whoever's running the ball for them, they're usually pretty productive.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's been true for a while. It's definitely a role that carries a lot of value.
1% owned.
Yeah,
Alex Collins.
yeah.
Yep.
Um, that's all we've really got for running backs, right?
That was it. That was all of them. There's
Um,
some randos out there, some random names, but not worth mentioning.
well, somebody maybe a quick follow up. There was somebody I threw out there last or on Sunday for a potential ad. That was purely circumstantial. Jeremy McNichols ended up having a decent little game, but like AJ Green and Julio, or sorry, AJ Brown and Julio were both out. So like, unless that's the case again, I have no interest in McNichols. But he did end up looking to get a decent little volume. I think he had a half dozen catches in that game when Tennessee was desperate to find other targets. So um, I don't know. I think it's unlikely that both of them miss again. But if they were both out, maybe you throw them out there on another flyer. But just following up, like that was not a long term something I was really excited about. But um,
Right.
yeah, so that's there. Let somebody else fall on that grenade. Um, all right, so I guess we're on to receivers. There are some that I think we've liked maybe a little more than others. Jamison Crowder's one of them, and he's been on the injury report all year, but he shows up, has a game. I don't know why. I don't know. People don't seem to really like him as fantasy owners too much, but I mean, he's been
Yeah,
productive when he's been out there, right?
he really has. Like, just a guy that usually produces. It's like a Jarvis Landry situation. Guy that always seems to provide you with a pretty good floor and maybe not the highest of upsides weekly, but and then just but someone that no one ever has interest in. It's a weird kind of murky situation though with the Jets because of the rookie there. Like Elijah Moore was, he was in the concussion protocol, right?
Yeah.
And this past week, and Jamison Crowder, it was his first week back, and there was a clear path. It was basically Jamison Crowder and Corey Davis. Now that you have the rookie back, is he going to fill that slot role? And then is Crowder going to play on the outside a lot? Or are they going to kind of move both those guys around between the two positions? I don't know if that's something we'll know before this next game or not. But first game back, and Crowder had, I think it was 9 targets, did catch a touchdown. I think he's worth adding. There's not a lot of receivers available this week in waivers that really stand out. So maybe that's part of the reason too why Crowder seems interesting this week. I don't know, but I do think he should be owned. He's 19% of leagues that he's owned in right now. I imagine that number should go up quite a bit after his first week back and having a good productive game.
Yeah, I think Crowder's interesting based on what he's done throughout his career. I think the situation that's a good point to make with Elijah Moore because Elijah Moore's size says that like he needs to be inside, and I think if that's something that the Jets force, like that probably hurts both of their value to, or that hurts Crowder's value for sure. But my
Yeah.
concern is that like Elijah Moore did get some reps while Crowder was out too, and it didn't seem like he did nearly as much as Crowder did on his first game back. So I'm kind of hoping that the
True.
team sees that too, and that they give Crowder some opportunities. And I don't know if you are big on Crowder, or you pick him up this week. We're kind of hoping that maybe more ends up being a little more gadgety than like a full-time slot guy. Maybe they try to move him around or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, being a rookie he may just end up taking a backseat to Crowder. That might just happen. It's a nice matchup this week against Atlanta, too.
They did it with Denzel Mims.
They did do it with Denzel Mims.
Well, that was a different coaching staff, but
Yeah,
they'll do it over there.
Yeah, I know we drafted you. Sit down.
Yeah, I don't care where we drafted you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Crowder's interesting.
another guy that's in a similar category for us, I think, is Devontae Parker. I I know he's a little higher than you like to point out on these lists. He's 61% owned, but like I don't know, there's still 39% of leagues out there that have him available. He had a really nice year last year. My concern is that the number of targets that Miami has that I think are capable. I think they've got a nice list of weapons over there, but Crowder's been pretty consistent this year, even with all those options. And I don't know. I mean, he's another guy that I think goes under the radar a little bit. I they've got a little
Another
bit
guy
of
that nobody ever wants.
exactly, and they've got a little bit of a quarterback situation over there, but I think that also speaks to Parker as a player, that he's getting the volume with Brissett too.
Yeah. Well, the guy, no one would ever call him fast. I can tell you that much. He just, every catch he makes has to be contested almost every time because he doesn't get much separation. But you know what he's really good at? He's really good at using his big old body and making a lot of contested catches. He is a good player. And yeah, another guy nobody ever wants. I think it's because of how many years he went of just getting hyped up and not ever producing. I think that's left a permanent bad in everyone's mouth with Devontae Parker. I
Yeah,
think that's
because
why he never gets drafted.
well, like
Mm.
coming out of college, fantasy reporters wanted him to be a thing, and then it was like post hype sleeper the next year, and then it was like, okay, well they have a new situation, so we're gonna give him a third chance, and
Yeah,
then he ended up
was
playing well, like what, year 4?
4 or 5. I think it was right around the time it was coming up on a contract, I believe.
Oh, guys don't do that, right?
No, that's just a myth.
But good. I mean, good player. Less than ideal situation, but he's found some consistency within that. So I think there's some interest there.
Yeah.
Um, there's a guy that maybe we aren't as excited to talk about, but we're at a point where like it just has to be discussed.
I already know who this is.
Yeah, AJ Green's carved out a role in Arizona. We've seen some ups and downs. Mostly, Rondale Moore seems to be the guy that's suffering out of all the options to this point. We're a month into the season. He's the guy that seems to have taken the biggest step back. But AJ Green has had 6 targets in each of the first 4 games, and he's done a little. He's had a couple pretty nice games on 6 targets. So uh, for me, it looks like it's not going to be as much of like a volume thing, which you wouldn't expect with the guys they have over there anyway. But um, it seems like he's finding a way to be productive with those looks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the same old song and dance every week at this point with the Arizona wide receivers that we when we bring them up. Just throw AJ Green into the mix of all those other guys that, you expect a couple of them to have a good game. It's hard to predict for sure who it will be. But AJ Green, if you're gonna talk about Christian Kirk and how he should be owned, and if you're gonna talk about how Rondell Moore would be a nice stash, and obviously everybody's got, Hopkins is owned everywhere. AJ Green should be thrown in that list of names too. Because he, like you said, he's had 6 targets every game, and he has produced on some of these weeks, especially late. I think that first week even that first week he had a red zone target, just didn't connect on it. So
Yeah, and then it
don't
was
love,
like week 2, he hit the century mark, right? He had like
yeah,
117 or something, and
yeah. This is proving to be an offense that you probably want to have a piece of if you can get it. It's one of the most, if not the most high scoring right now. Kyler Murray is ridiculous. He's just a video game character out there on the field.
Well,
So yeah, AJ Green at 36% owned. He's out on the field a lot for that team. I would hope that you wouldn't have to start him just because I think it's going to be, even though he's had consistent weeks now, I still feel like that 2 or 3 point game is looming any week. It's going to happen, but you can say that about most wide receivers in the league at the same time.
yeah, when you're looking at guys on the waiver wire, I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys that you're looking at and you're thinking like, okay, well, this could be good, it could be bad. The benefit to adding guys off free agency or waivers is that you kind of have some say in the matchups that you're taking on, so you get to offset that a little bit. I think I'm more interested season long in guys like Crowder and Parker personally, but there's also a part of fantasy that requires riding the hot hand, and like right now, I mean, through 4 games, and obviously they're all in different circumstances. Like AJ Green's had a couple nice games, so I don't know that that's going to be an always thing. But if it's a first half of the season thing, it might be nice to get your hands on. The offense thing, I love that you brought that up because like 6 targets on other teams isn't really like a great deal, right? Like Sammy Watkins has had 7 or more targets in every game, and like he I don't know.
Yeah.
His own percentage is about the same. It's 5 points higher actually, but like I'm probably more interested in AJ Green than Sammy Watkins right now. It's like that offense as a whole. The when you have an explosive offense, the efficiency goes up, and those 6 looks end up meaning a lot more.
They do. I would take AJ Green 6 targets in Arizona before I would take 8 targets from Sammy Watkins in Baltimore.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, I would too. And I think that's just worth pointing out because like we've talked about volume a lot, and it's very important. Guys have to have opportunities to produce, but that's just a little insight I think on like the quality of the looks.
Yeah, definitely. Quality, the quality of the targets certainly matter and where they're coming from in the offense that it's in. Arizona's one of those hot teams right now. Kind of throw them up there with like a Baltimore, Kansas City.
Yeah.
Not Baltimore. Sorry, Buffalo. That's what I meant to say.
Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins, little bit of a segue there. He's somebody that might be interesting. I see that his own rate went up 9% recently. So, there is a lot about him on paper that would be intriguing to me if that's all I were considering. But you have Rashad Bateman coming back too. Devin Duvernay, I think it was, or Miles Boykin, one of the other guys got a little more involved this week too. So, I don't know. I mean, what Sammy Watkins has offered as far as volume goes has been interesting up until this point, but I think that's changing very soon. And I guess I'm just saying that's somebody that might be intriguing that I'm not, if you're just looking at it on paper, that I'm not necessarily interested in adding.
Same. Right there with you. I only would want Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown as far as pass catchers go for that team. Maybe Bateman comes out and is so good that he essentially demands that he gets a role on the team that becomes a weekly, like a weekly part of the game plan. But it's hard to imagine that world. And I don't. Buying into Baltimore's pass catchers is tough for me outside of it being Mark Andrews and Hollywood. So, I mean, you're right. Sammy Watkins has been involved. He's been involved every week, and he's made plays for them. But it's one of those better for real life football than it is for fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree.
Which is what he was in Kansas City too.
It's kind of funny though. He's taking on more volume and he seems to be healthier. Weird.
Right. That is weird.
I don't know. I mean, there's some other guys I had wrote down that are a little less interesting, but I mean, so kind of like we were talking about with Devontae Parker, like N'Keal Harry's in that territory where it's like we think he could be really good, and we keep finding excuses to be interested in him again, and I understand that. I do want to see what N'Keal Harry does with Mac Jones as quarterback, and I think that is an extra opportunity for him. He's only owned in just under 1% of leagues right now, so that's somebody that I'd want to see have a game before I commit to it. And I guess if that's okay, if I'm late on that, I'm okay with it. But someone that I'd at least have on your watch list, if you see that he has a game or he has a couple decent games, maybe you're interested in that. And then my kind of crazy pick that I I'm not saying is safe at all, but Quez Watkins has been producing, and as a result of that, they gave him quite a few more targets this week. He had 3 targets, 2 targets, and 2 targets, and he hit a couple big plays on those. What's interesting to me is that he had 7 targets this week, and essentially, at least in a small sample as of today, seems to be demanding more volume than Jalen Reagor. So Phillies pass catchers are kind of concerning for me as a whole. Like Zach Ertz has been more involved the last 2 weeks too, so that like I don't know what to think. Jalen Hurts passing has been criticized, rightfully so, over the last few weeks too. So like Phillies passing game is another one that I'm not trying to get invested in like Baltimore's, but I find it interesting that someone like Quez Watkins is carving out a little bit of a role over some names that the team had invested more draft capital in, and probably feel a little better about, I don't know, on paper or coming into the season. So I
Hmm.
think it's worth. I think that's another one worth monitoring, but not someone that I'd want to like be jumping the gun on.
Yeah. And I'll throw out a couple more as well. Van Jefferson is 8% owned. He's had 6 targets the last 2 weeks. Deshaun Jackson, after his blow up week in the previous week, he went back to 1 catch. I think it was this past game. The reason why I'm bringing up Van Jefferson now is, and I wasn't really that interested in him in the beginning of the year, is since Deshaun Jackson has been out on the field more and seems to have sort of taken that deep role position, like he's definitely that guy still. It seems like it's allowed Van Jefferson and the Rams to use him a little bit differently. I kind of just like the routes and the usage that they're getting out of him, as opposed to just being the guy that runs for the deep ball. It's tough to bank on those types of plays. They're not going to hit all the time. When they do, it's great, and it only takes 1 catch. But it's just obviously it's less reliable for that reason. Van Jefferson's been getting more work kind of all over the field and in the intermediate game. So because of that reason, and because of the way Stafford's been playing, it can't all be Cooper Cup. I mean, they just proved that this past week. So Van Jefferson's interesting at such a low ownership percentage, and Kadarius Toney, 4% owned, the rookie out of New York. I don't know. I mean, Slayton was out and Shepard was out, but Kadarius Toney did play quite a bit. He had 6 catches, 78 yards. Looked quite interesting on the field. I was like, "Yo, who's that guy?" Um, so I don't know. For what it's worth, throwing it out there. If you've heard us talk before, we are not big fans of Daniel Jones. At least I'm definitely not a fan of his. But we're looking at some of these wide receivers that are available this week, and we're mentioning names like AJ Green, and then we follow that up with mentioned Jamison Crowder. We're like, I don't know, maybe it's the Jets. I don't know. So I just if we're taking shots with guys like this, Van Jefferson, Kadarius Toney, if a AJ Green, a Jamison Crowder, if those guys get picked up, if people bid too much on them and you're left with nothing, but you still got a spot or two that you're on your bench, I think guys like that are interesting to throw on the end of your bench.
Yeah, for sure. Another guy that I kind of like just noticed when we were clicking around a little bit before we started streaming was Hunter Renfro. I mean, I think for me, I would look at him like a Cole Beasley, but they've got some designed routes for him, and they're like are plays that they go in planning on getting him the ball, and he's also been involved in like short yardage red zone stuff. So um, he caught another short touchdown this week. It's 3, I think, so far on the year that he's got that are in like short yardage situations. You don't really normally think of like little slot Hunter Renfro or somebody like that getting
Mm-hmm.
touchdown looks, but it's happening. So His owner rate has gone up quite a bit, but he's still at 56% right now. So
Yeah.
um, definitely somebody if you're looking for consistency or the off-brand Cole Beasley, like Hunter Renfro's that guy. And I think the obligatory mention that we've already had an opportunity to add, but he's still really low, is Josh Gordon.
I was gonna ask you about him, what you thought. Just just sort of one of those situations where you throw him on the end of your bench and you go, I don't love it, but let's see.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, I
that's kind
think
of where I'm at.
I think that the Chiefs and the Bucks have been two teams that have brought people in and not really given too much thought onto what their name is or what their history might be. So like, and I say that because like LaShawn McCoy went to Kansas City and it was like, okay, whatever, right? Like they've added
Mm.
some pieces, but it hasn't really happened for receivers. Sammy Watkins was a nice ad, but I think people were kind of out on him in Buffalo before they got him. So we haven't really seen this with Kansas City and at this position yet. But I assume that the Chiefs are going to be more accepting of Gordon filling the number two role, and I think they have higher expectations for him as a player than what some of the other guys have been offering. Um, I don't know. I don't think I have like really high expectations as far as his production goes. I haven't really made an effort to add him to any of my teams, but it's one of those that I wouldn't be surprised if it were a thing. I think there could be a decent amount of upside there. Um, the other side of that coin is that all of the other receivers not named Tyreek Hill or Mecole Hardman are probably out, right? I think Josh Gordon would take over anything that like Robinson or Pringle were bringing to the table.
Yeah, assuming he's got anything left, then yes, I think he would. I think he would supplant those guys.
And then Hardman is probably still involved for the speed to
Right,
some extent. Now, I don't think it's going to be big, but
right.
do
I,
you
w-
see
I
a
would agree.
do you see a world where Josh Gordon's getting into like I mean, we can't hold the first month against him because he didn't play, but like if you were just looking at from today forward, do you think Josh Gordon's ceiling is like low end wide receiver two territory? I think if I had to guess, I'd say his peak would probably be around there, but my expectation is going to be more like have a big game, don't really do too much, and it'll probably
Mhm.
get him around I don't know, low end three, maybe like matchup based flex considerations. I think that's what it ends up being. But like upside, where do you think his upside is?
I think is I think is a very low possibility this it happens. But if everything worked out perfect for Josh Gordon, I think he has quite a bit of upside just because I think there could be a lot of opportunity for touchdowns, and that's king overall over everything else in fantasy. It's touchdowns. The Chiefs don't run the ball particularly great, although Clyde has had a couple nice back-to-back weeks, but history tells us in recent history that they aren't particularly efficient running the ball, and they are a team that at or near the goal line they still throw quite often. Travis Kelsey's scored a lot of touchdowns that way, but couldn't you picture a Josh Gordon on the outside, single coverage, big receiver, and Mahomes just places it in a spot where Josh Gordon can go up and get it, and it's just a tough matchup for a small corner when you're with Josh Gordon. And this is assuming like we don't know what Josh Gordon is anymore, but if he's still capable. I mean, I'm so surprised that he's active and supposed to be on the field this quickly. We really didn't expect that, but that does make me feel a little bit more positively about what he could be as far as just game ready and maybe not a complete bum, which is what I was worried about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what if he has single coverage and he's not really separating, but he's got single coverage on a deep ball and Mahomes just gives him a shot and he makes a play here and there. Like it wouldn't take much for him to make to turn a good fantasy day because it's this offense and because they don't have it's like they've been searching but have not been able to find somebody outside of Tyreek and Kelsey. It feels like there's definitely enough passing volume there. And, we were talking about quality of these targets. Of course, these are high quality targets with Mahomes. So you can picture a world where if there's another good, capable pass catcher for them, that they can be good for fantasy. I just don't know what Josh Gordon is anymore as a player, and then what their plans are for him. Those are the two things we have to wait and see on. And
Well,
when you're stashing him, those are the things you don't know.
this will be. I mean, I think most people would agree that Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill are two very they're elite targets and probably possibly the best tandem in the league. I think that you look at like a Julio and AJ Brown, I get that, and like there's a couple others that you could probably argue, but like that tandem is huge, and this is going to be the least amount of attention a defense could ever afford to give Josh Gordon. I know he was in New England with a decent, or with Tom Brady, but he was still high. Like he was still a big enough threat that the defenses could afford to give him a little attention when needed. When he was in Seattle, DK was brand new. Tyler Lockett was good, but like not great. It's just interesting because it's like you can't afford to take guys off of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey, and teams have been up until this week like keeping the top on their defense. They were, shading safeties Tyreek Hill's way and trying to take that big threat away. So I mean, they were already occupying two defenders on Tyreek Hill alone, and then trying to deal with Travis Kelsey underneath. And I don't know. I mean, it's a great opportunity, but yeah, I agree. It's like how much does he have left? But like, I think single coverage is going to be a common thing for him.
That's why I brought it up, because of what you said. Obviously, you have Tyreek and you have Kelsey, and at least probably for the eternity of those guys playing together. But at least for now, like that's ingrained in every defense when they play the Chiefs. Those are the guys that they're looking for. Like those are the guys that are the huge threats, and that's going to be the case even with Josh Gordon on the field. So the reason I mentioned the single coverage stuff is because I would expect for that to happen quite a bit, and if he's out on the field a lot, Mahomes is going to take those shots, and then if Josh Gordon can turn those into something, then that's just going to increases his workload and how much Mahomes looks for him. And then it could be a month down the road from now, and he may be very relevant for fantasy purposes. If he goes out there and gets targets and looks super sloppy and just can't get open, and he's dropping balls and he's screwing up his routes, I mean, I kind of am expecting to see that for the first week or two just because he hasn't played football. But if that's still the case a month from now, like I'm just out on it. I'm not going to expect it to lead to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely there's a big range of outcomes there with Josh Gordon, but there's a chance that ends up being a pretty big deal. It'll be interesting. I think with this far down the list of considerations for defenses is as he will be.
Right.
Well, that was harder to say than I thought. If he does start looking good, he's in a matchup-proof situation too. Like I think if he is looking good, I don't really care who they're playing.
No. You just don't with that offense. You just don't worry about it. There's some offenses, Arizona, Buffalo, like these offenses, you just always play those guys no matter what the matchup is. Unless it's the running backs. Then it's a different story.
It's true.
We're talking specifically the quarterback and the pass catchers.
Yeah, and when they're putting up points like those teams are that you mentioned, it's like defenses can take parts of some of that away, but there's no way they're just going to stop any of it.
No. Someone's going to be open.
So that's our wide receiver list, right?
I think so. I feel compelled, and yet I don't want to say it, but I feel compelled to throw out Randall Cobb's name because he's only 15% owned, and he did just have a really nice week when MVS was hurt and out, which is the case. I think he was put on IR, so that's minimum 3 weeks 2 more weeks from this point. It wasn't Alan Lazard like I assumed it probably wouldn't be, but I just didn't know if it would be anyone else. Well, it turned out it was Randall Cobb this week. Is that going to be a thing moving forward? No idea. But I like having receivers that are tied to really good quarterbacks. I think Aaron Rodgers is still a really good quarterback, and he obviously won to Randall Cobb there. He gave Randall Cobb his opportunities. He threw to him this past week, and he turned it into something. So, hey, just another one of those guys. Like, throw him into that list of these other names we mentioned to me where, if you have a preference on one of these players, then it doesn't even matter to me which one of this group you would want to put a claim in for or to bid on. But I think he should be thrown into this group of guys that should be looked at, potentially picked up.
Yeah, and we were kind of joking that Randall Cobb is going to get fed by Rodgers because, like, he had averaged, I think it said, like 14 snaps on offense each of the first few games. So, like, we were kind of joking, but I think there is something that to be said about, like, Rodgers feeding Cobb to keep him on the field. Like, he pushed to get him on the team, and now he's got him, and I could just see where, like, a little bit of forced production might twist the coaching staff's hand a little bit.
Well, I mean, if he can do what he did this past week, if they can continue to get that production out of him, then they have to play him more because they can't get that out of any other receiver outside of Devontae Adams. Like, none of those other guys have been able to do this, be reliable, and they've been there long enough. They have no more excuses.
Well, and a lot of what Randall Cobb provided his last stretch in Green Bay was kind of ageless. It was like finding open space, finding pockets and zones. Like, you don't have to be an athletic freak to do that.
Right. No, you don't. And I don't, as far as his physical capabilities go, Randall Cobb's not the same guy, obviously, but it doesn't mean that his mental's not still there and understanding, that relationship that he has with Rodgers and just finding a spot in the open field. And I mean, man, if Cobb's turning out making plays like that, Rodgers is the guy to continue to target you if you can do that. So,
yeah.
I don't know. This could be this for real, dude. This could be something like next week. He gets 17 snaps, has 1 catch, 3 targets, and it doesn't matter. But there's also possible though that like maybe this is the start of a trend.
Yeah, it's better to be aware of it. I like that we point some stuff out, maybe that is being overlooked, or maybe when we don't point it out, it's assumed that we are like ignoring it, or that we don't care. So yeah, I mean,
these are the type of situations where you don't have to like act on it. You don't have to pick the people up. It's possible that someone will though, but if anything else, if some of these guys don't get picked up, I don't like to overreact on one matchup and one good week because everybody's got some good weeks in them. Doesn't mean that's going to continue to be the case. We're trying to figure out like what's something that we can bet on that's a good bet to make moving forward with these players. When you see a Randall Cobb do that for 1 week, if you don't want to pick him up, totally understandable. In a 10-team league, if he was available in a 10-team league, depending on my bench, I don't even know if I would make that kind of move. But you pay attention to it, so that way if it happens again, you already knew that this was something you were looking at, and then you can go, okay, this seems like might actually be something that's a thing now, and now I need to act.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Somebody that it sounded like I might be a little more interested than you, and I do think it's set up to be another mess of a fantasy situation. But Trey Lance could be starting a game this coming week. Garoppolo has an issue, and they haven't ruled him out yet. But my concern is that San Francisco has this whole thing set up, and they started doing this in the preseason to plug and play these guys and interchange them. They were switching these guys mid-drive in the preseason. So, like, part of my concern is that they've solidified so much their non-committal approach to these quarterbacks that I feel like even if Garoppolo were to miss a short period of time, like, they, of any team in the NFL, could be most likely to just plug Garoppolo back in as soon as he's ready, because it just has that feel of, like, fear of commitment. But like Trey Lance being involved, I still feel like is an uptick for these receivers. With the way that Debo's been being fed, it might hurt him actually a little bit, but like it has me pretty optimistic about Ayuk. It's somebody that they were getting more involved the last couple weeks. It seems like they're back, getting him back on track or feeling better about what he's had going on. And I want to see Trey Lance throwing the ball for San Francisco as a Brandon Ayuk owner. So that could also be part of it. I think the read options could benefit some of these running backs too, that we aren't fond of that situation at all. But for me, it's mostly Brandon Ayuk, and that's if Trey Lance starts. But with as high as they drafted this kid, I mean, there's a chance if he comes out and he's productive and the team looks really good and they're looking, like they're in a rhythm and like things are just going better overall, like there's also a chance that that's what they stick with.
I think they'd have to. If Trey Lance actually came out and looked the part and was productive, the offense was, like you said, they were in a rhythm, they're winning games. I think they would have to stick with him. They'd be so stupid not to, because Garoppolo's pretty much sucked so far this year. He has not been good. I don't even know what his statistics are, but I've watched the 49ers games, and what I'm seeing with my eyeballs with him is not good. So I don't I don't feel like there's I think if Trey Lance comes in and plays well, that's his gig. I I will say that I definitely have my questions about Trey Lance. I'm a little bit worried about him. I think even though what Garoppolo's done has been bad, I think there is room for it to go worse, and I hope that's not the case with Trey Lance. I think people are making a little bit bigger deal of his inconsistent, some like bad performance overall that he had in this past week. But he came in after Garoppolo got hurt. It's not like Trey Lance has had a bunch of run with the ones in practice and got those reps in. And it's also, there was a game plan that the Niners came in with, and they can't just switch all that around on a dime during a game when the quarterback goes down for another quarterback who is not the same type of player. Like, there's a different playbook, I'm sure, if Trey Lance is your starter as opposed to if Garoppolo is your starter. We did see some of the read option, and honestly, that read option really did help the run game. Trey Sermon had a couple runs up the middle where he had room to run, and that was in my opinion, that was a direct result of the read option that they used a little bit. Trust me, as an Ayuk owner, I certainly hope that this is an uptick too. I mean, I am hoping that is the case, and I'm holding on to Brandon Ayuk myself. I'm sure a bunch of people are going to be looking to drop him this week. But I'm holding on and hoping that situation does get better. I just don't know, man. I just don't know what to think about Trey Lance yet. So far, these rookie quarterbacks as a whole have struggled. Maybe Trey Lance can be the first one to turn that around a little bit for these guys.
Well,
And I would love to see it.
the upside is the real thriller. Like it could be bad, but he had 18 pass attempts and he completed half of those, so the percentage isn't great, but it went for 157 and 2 touchdowns, and then add 7 carries for 41 yards to that too. Like in standard scoring, he had 20, a little over 20 points on 18 pass attempts and some carries. So like that's a half that he did
Yeah,
that.
it's the Jalen Hurts experience.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's why we talked about Fields so much. He hasn't really ran as much as we would have expected, but that's why we were talking about Justin Fields, is because he has the ability to turn upfield and run as much as he'd like to, and that's just the freaking cheat code with quarterbacks in fantasy. Like, if they have the ability to rush like that, like Trey Lance does, then yeah, you can have a bad day in real football as a quarterback. It still turn out a great day for fantasy. And Trey Lance definitely fits that bill. I mean, they're gonna run with him near the goal line. They'll use that read option with him in the goal line, and he's got an opportunity to punch one in at any point in the game.
Oh yeah.
So
We got a question here. Goddard and Boyd for Kittle. Thoughts?
Goddard and Boyd for Kittle.
I think so.
Oh,
I
you
think
would do it?
so. Yeah, I mean Boyd's been really good lately, and Goddard has been pretty good too. Um, I don't know. I know you've been concerned with Kittle. I have some concerns with him too. If it weren't for recency bias, I think this would be an easy call. But you're looking at it now, and it's like, okay, well, Kittle hasn't been great. These guys are producing.
I suppose if you're deep at receiver, like if Boyd is not your third receiver right now, if he's your fifth, fourth, and you can replace that wide receiver and it's not really that big a deal for you, then yes, I would do it. And I guess, do we even know for sure what part of the deal, what part of the side of this deal he's on? But assuming you're getting Kittle for those guys, like I said, if you don't really need receiver, then yeah, I would do it too. But if you're kind of thin at receiver, I wouldn't personally.
There's also something to be said, like if you're 1-3 or 0-4 right now, I'm probably not doing it either. Like you have to be in a situation where you've got at least a couple wins. You like the rest of your roster. Um, if you're getting Kittle, it's a consolidation move, which should be easier to do if you are already winning games. So it's just I don't know. It's circumstantial. If you're
Hmm.
having a good year and you like your roster, then you take the upside in Kittle. If you're not leaning on Boyd too heavy, if you're desperate for wins right now, you're probably playing both of those, Goddard and Boyd, and um, you're not going to take on the lower production, the disappointment in Kittle because you don't have to.
Right. Kittle could certainly turn it around. I mean, we were just talking about Trey Lance. So with a new quarterback, maybe things change for that offense as a whole. I mean, Kittle did have a couple plays that didn't go his way. One was for a touchdown that he just couldn't come down with. And if he makes that catch or a couple of other plays that just didn't work out this past game, he has a much better fantasy day. And then people are feeling different about him. And if a Kittle owner has Kittle and hasn't and didn't watch the game and didn't see those plays, and Kittle's been disappointing so far this season, I mean, I think that's the only reason why you could even get an offer like that, because Goddard also just came off of his decent day. Boyd went off. Boyd also didn't have Higgins there, and that is going to impact Boyd and his consistency when Higgins is back, and he's supposed to be this week. It's like I don't hate the trade. I really don't. But I just think yeah, there's enough value with Boyd that if you're quite thin at receiver, I wouldn't necessarily make that move. And that's the only place I'm in. If he's replaceable for you, I mean, I'd rather have George Kittle than Dallas Goddard.
Yeah. Yeah, in general, I mean, circumstance is always going to come into play. In general, I would usually want to get the better player back, but there's always going to be a circumstance where like you're considering the other side or you want to stick with the depth for sure.
Right. You
I mean, if you've got like a Michael Thomas on your bench that you've been waiting on, we haven't heard anything about him coming back soon, but like those stashes too kind of help with those decisions. Like there's just so many factors.
Michael Thomas has been sitting back watching the Saints play so far, and Sean Payton just went up to him this past week, asked him when he thought he's going to be ready, and Michael Thomas's response was just simply, "Nah,
We good.
nah, I don't think I'm gonna be ready this year, coach."
You let me know when Drew comes back.
Yep. Well, hell, if we're talking about tight ends, why don't we just talk about a couple that are out there and available right now that are kind of interesting?
Yeah, hell yeah.
So Dawson Knox over here at Buffalo, out here turning out some games, man. Targets, the first 3 weeks, the targets weren't really there. I think he had 5 targets was his highest target game, but this past week he had 8. He's scored what 4 touchdowns, I believe, in the last 3 games. Yeah, because he had 2 this past week. This is one of those where if he doesn't score these touchdowns, then his fantasy days don't look all that appealing. There's 6-point days, 5-point days, something like that. But isn't that the case with almost all tight ends at the end of the day? We say it all the time, but like you're just hoping for that touchdown. with Buffalo, you get to be tied to a nice offense, and maybe Knox has done enough over these past few weeks that he can maybe he can stick into this nice little pocket he's in, and he seems to be getting looks in the red zone from Josh Allen, which that's intriguing to me because we expect that team to be in scoring position often. Nice matchup on top of that this week with Kansas City, so I think you could do a lot worse than a Dawson Knox. And then we have Dalton Shultz, who, you know, they have Jarwin over there, and so I think for a while nobody really knew how to gauge that situation with both of those tight ends over there in Dallas. But it seems pretty convincing at this point that Dalton Schultz is the guy. Like he's the pass catcher, and Jarwin is out there. I think he runs some routes and gets a couple targets, but he's mostly been a blocker. And Schultz has been the pass catching tight end, and he's been producing. He's been actually pretty consistent. So it's another offense that has not been as high powered as I think everybody was anticipating and hoping for. They've been running the ball pretty well these past couple weeks, and Dak's pass numbers have not been. I think didn't he have like less than 30 throws, pass attempts this past week, and maybe even the past 2 weeks in a row, which is fairly low for what we were expecting. But Schultz has seemed to have carved a nice rollout in that offense as well. And for right now, I don't see why that can't continue. Of course, it's a tight end position, and we're just reaching for guys, so any of these guys could disappear any week. That's certainly possible, but those are two people that are available in most leagues. They're about 30% owned each, and those are two names that stick out to me.
Yeah, they're Dallas is a fringe elite offense. Like they have a ton of talent over there. I don't know that we put them in the same category. We haven't mentioned them in the same category as like a Kansas City, Buffalo. I mean, maybe the Rams I think have a lot of hype. I don't know if you would put them in
Yeah.
there, but I mean Dallas has a lot of star power too. So like these are two tight ends on really good offenses that have a really nice opportunity to kind of go under the radar. I think we're getting to the point now where we should be seeing. What's up,
What up,
Brad?
Brad?
I think we're getting to a point now where at least I am kind of past Dak's like rust. Like I think we're at a point where we're like,
Yeah.
okay, Dak is what he's gonna be at this point. And I thought he looked pretty good, but yeah, his pass attempts were pretty low. I kind of wonder if the coaching staff was like, man, we really had you air it out week one in that Tampa game. Like maybe we need to take it a little easy for a while. I mean that happens, and Zeke was running the ball effectively too, so I think that might have been part of it. But lot of firepower, firepower out there, and it's an exciting little sneaky feeling pick.
It seems to me like that offense. It seems to me like if they can run the ball and run the ball effectively, that they will go ahead and just do that. Like that I don't think you can put them. They're not that same type of offense right now as Kansas City or Arizona that are just foot to the pedal at all times. We are trying to score and we'll do it through the air and we don't care what the score is. Dallas is not playing football that way outside of that first week. They are not doing that. But I mean, if you look at Schultz's targets these past 7 and 8 targets these past 2 weeks. Week 1 he had 6, and he's had 2 really nice fantasy days these past 2 weeks. So would you do Schultz? Would y'all do Schultz, Pat for Gibson?
The Pat part I think is throwing us
Yeah,
off.
not sure what you mean there, Brad. You have to let us know. Schultz, Pat for Gibson.
What's up, Justin?
What's up, Justin? Let us know what you mean there exactly, Brad. I'm not quite sure what your question is. Oh, Cordell Patterson. So, are you saying Schultz as in Dalton Schultz and Cordell Patterson for Antonio Gibson? I would do that trade if you're getting Gibson. I would do it personally, but I'm a believer in Gibson. I think he hasn't had as good of as a season so far as his potential. I think he can really have. I think he's a really good player. I like Gibson quite a bit.
I agree.
But
I like
Cordell's been killing it, But this is also like you could be selling high right now.
well, and that's what I was gonna say is I think Cordell Patterson's real. So like I
Sure.
don't it might just help your evaluation if you maybe feel a little different than us that like Cordell Patterson is real. I don't think this is like a total sell high. I mean he might not be he's not going to score 3 touchdowns every week, right? But
No.
like I think he's going to be good the rest of the year. So um I wouldn't I wouldn't function under the assumption that he's going to be a bum that, you caught lightning in a bottle and you're going to move him, but I still like that trade.
Hey guys, should I trade Goddard and Gibson for Jamal Williams and Deontay Johnson? And by the way, Goddard is my backup behind Waller. So you're not even really playing Goddard. And so you're trading away Gibson and you're getting Jamal Williams and Deontay Johnson. Where does Gibson fall in for your running backs? He's your RB2 right now because I think the difference between him and Jamal Williams, I think that's a pretty considerable gap. And I mean, if you're super deep at running back, if you went running back heavy in the beginning and that's why you're looking to pick up a Deontay Johnson, maybe you've got good running backs and you're thin at receiver. I mean, Deontay Johnson's a hell of a receiver, and we're both big fans of him. So, I mean, of course, I love getting him and letting Goddard go when you got Waller. That's really not that big a deal. But I wouldn't trade away Gibson if you don't have a really good other running back. He's 3 behind David Montgomery. Well, Montgomery's out for 4 to 5 weeks was the last report that was out. So, uh, you have to be careful with that one because you could put yourself in a position where all of a sudden you're quite thin at running back.
Yeah, you might be creating a need on that.
Right. It may be if you could hold off on that trade and try to pick up like a Damien Williams. And if you could get Damien Williams to play for David Montgomery in the meantime, you could do that and then make that trade still. But you're really just you're kind of creating a hole somewhere else to fix one. Like you're just sort of swapping it. You know what I mean? Well, I like Gibson quite a bit. I think Dubs likes him too. We both are big fans of Deontay Johnson, so I suppose it's really a personal preference on which position you want to be kind of thin at.
The idea of moving Goddard to get what you can for him is nice though. Like I would keep
Yeah.
working around that with you having Waller too. So like maybe you see what you can get for Goddard with that same owner. I would be trying to figure out if that owner's interested in Gibson and Goddard's just an extra piece, or if they have like some actual interest in Goddard that you can work with.
Knox, Schultz, or Gesicki to be my tight end two. Pitt's got a bye week 6. Um, I I personally lean Knox or Schultz over Gesicki. Gesicki's probably going to provide you with a decent floor. It seems like Brissett is targeting him pretty heavily right now. But the upside that Knox and Schultz have shown so far, I think that might be something that could continue potentially. Between those two, do you have a preference, Dub? I don't know if I do.
Well, I just pulled up week 6 schedule, just hoping that might bail us out a little bit. And they've got Dallas is in New England and Buffalo's in Tennessee. So I mean, matchup wise, there's nothing that's really that I'm. It's harder to gauge tight end matchups anyway, but I, I think I, I think for me, I think it's
It's
pretty
tough.
close.
It is really close. We just love Knox because we love being tied to that Buffalo offense. At the same time, they've got so many weapons over there, so many guys they could throw to that he could certainly just have a game where he's not involved. If the touchdowns don't go his way, if it's Diggs and then Sanders gets one. The thing is with Buffalo is like they will put up 40. Then that last game they was like 35 or 40 to nothing at some point. Like they're just out there slinging the ball still. They just don't care.
Yeah.
And so like with Dawson Knox, like I don't know, there's something about that that's really intriguing to me. But I think Schultz is a solid pick too.
I trust Josh Allen better too. Like both games are going to be outdoors. I mean, it's another
Yeah.
week later. Like if Dak Prescott's in Foxborough week 6 and it happens to be a bad weather game, like I'm going Dawson Knox pretty heavy, I think, at that point.
Right. Okay, let's see here. Sell or keep A-Rob. My wideouts are Hill, Jefferson, DJ Moore, Waddle. Yeah, the problem with that, I don't hate it, but the problem with trying to sell Allen Robinson right now is I think his value is at such a low, and I don't like doing that. I don't like trading away players like him that have started a season off pretty badly just because I don't want him on my team anymore and I want to get rid of him and end up taking lesser value than you should be getting. And that's likely. Now, if someone wants to offer you Allen Robinson type of equivalent player in a trade that when we thought like Allen Robinson was going to be that back and wide receiver 1, like if you can get that sort of equivalent back in a trade, then by all means go ahead and do it. You've got a stacked wide receiver group right there with Hill, Jefferson, DJ Moore. Those are nice wideouts. But I wouldn't sell if it's selling low. Just to get rid of them, I wouldn't do that.
The best way for me to feel better about a situation like that is sometimes just a new face. Like I might be looking at targeting a similar, like you said, similar player, but like someone, that hasn't owned up to their expectations, but has a lot of upside. And for me, sometimes it just feels better knowing like I haven't been looking at this player every week that I'm setting my lineup and being disappointed. Like I feel like, I don't know, it doesn't change much, I don't think, for fantasy outlook. I think if I could get Allen Robinson relatively cheap, I'd be interested in doing so, right? But because he's been on my team,
yeah,
I'm upset about it. So sometimes it helps
yeah,
too to just get
that's
like,
funny. It's
I
so
don't
true
know,
though.
like OBJ, Baker overthrew OBJ, and they've talked a lot about the chemistry between those two guys. But like little farther down the draft list than you'd like, but like there's still a lot of upside there too. So I don't
Right.
know. I might just be looking for a new face there, similar value, similar situation.
Thoughts on Noah Fant? Should I keep a firm grip on that Iowa man? Yeah. I mean, if you have these other tight ends that we've mentioned, like a Schultz and Knox, there's even some others we really didn't get to that are available. Gesicki is available in some leagues. Zach Ertz. Everybody wants Dallas Goedert. Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is out there getting 7-8 targets, and just this past week, Hurts overthrew him on a wide open touchdown. Overthrew Ertz. I mean, look, I don't love him, but he's involved in that offense. So, like, if you have guys like that are available and you're feeling a little shaky about Fant, I don't hate the idea of picking one of those guys up, but I think Fant's fine still.
Well, and Drew Lock might be playing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's better or worse. I mean,
Fant
look,
was good with Lock.
Drew Lock's gonna sling the ball. We all know that, okay? And that's nice. That's nice for fantasy. We just don't know where they're gonna go. Could be some turnovers, could be some drive killers. It's a give and take.
It was him and Fant, I think, did have a bit of chemistry, and there were a lot of injuries too. Like Sutton was out last year, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I do like, I think Fant has a little light at the end of the tunnel potentially with Lock. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I think there's some hope there.
Justin, do I pick up Tim Patrick and pick up Crowder, Carter, or Gainwell? If Tim Patrick's a wide receiver, if he's like your fourth or fifth wide receiver, you just picked him up off waivers in the last week or two, and you really don't actually intend on ever playing that guy, then I think I do like Crowder, definitely. I like Carter as a stash over Gainwell. Gainwell has been more involved in that offense. It seems like that is slowly becoming more of a split backfield than people are really talking about right now. I don't know what's going on with Miles Sanders exactly in that situation. Either way, I don't really want to buy into that situation that much. I would be willing to drop Tim Patrick for Crowder or Carter. Carter, if you want a potential really nice running back stash. And with Tim Patrick and Crowder, I guess that's personal preference because both of them are at the same position.
We had sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, we
Go
had
ahead.
we had one from Justin. Pats or Minnesota defense this week. I'm going Pats defense. Davis Mills has been kind of a wreck. Goff has been turnover prone. He's usually good for a couple turnovers a game, but Detroit's been moving the ball quite a bit too, and yards affect your points on the defense. Like Detroit was inside the 10 3 times without scoring last week. So like obviously the points are the biggest element for your defense, but if I would bet against Houston before I'd bet against Detroit just on that factor. Like, if one or two of those drives end up in touchdowns, like that, that would have been a big day for the opposing defense. So,
Right.
well, I'm a Detroit fan. That's a disclaimer. I like to think that I'm not too biased when it comes to that kind of stuff, though. And Detroit has been moving the ball, and I do think Houston's just a total wreck.
Yeah, sorry, I'm scrolling through chat. And I noticed where I missed a couple. You picked up that one. I see this one here. Terry McLaurin, is he a legit wide receiver one? Yes, yes he is.
Yeah, he's been doing it
Terry,
with everybody, man. He's like early Josh Gordon territory.
he's it just he himself is a very good player, very good player. Terry McLaurin is a legitimate wide receiver one.
Shamar, I see in the comments you said, okay, appreciate it. I'll be back. I'm a sub. You are a man or woman of your word. Sorry, say I'm going with man. But I appreciate it. We've got a sub here. Thanks for subbing. We definitely appreciate that.
Do I sell DJ Moore and keep Allen Robinson? Oof. I don't know how you can sell DJ Moore right now. He's been on an absolute heater. If someone is willing to
Yeah.
pay you big bucks for DJ Moore, they give you some really nice return, then I'm always going to be willing to listen to any trade offer. But he's been so good right now, and Darnold clearly looks for him early and often in games. I don't know, man. DJ Moore's doing the damn thing right now. It'd be hard for me to let him go.
Yeah, you want to ride that wave. That's a huge fantasy asset. Even if you think it ends at some point, like take it as long as you can get it. The bonus to you, and if you were to make that move, would be if A-Rob, perks up again. So, we think that's gonna happen, but DJ Moore killing it has been a lot more reliable than banking on A-Rob.
Definitely. Kirk Cousins or Trey Lance to be my QB2. Stafford is my QB1. I'm gonna. Is this a two quarterback league? If it's a two quarterback league, it's Kirk Cousins for me. Just because the Niners, specifically Shanahan, this entire time has been so anti playing Trey Lance and saying that Garoppolo's their guy. And it's even possible that Garoppolo might still end up getting the start this week. They haven't ruled him out, and there's some talk about that. So, like, Trey Lance, he might not even have a quarterback. It's very possible. If it's one quarterback and you're likely going to just stick with Stafford, then the potential upside that Trey Lance has is something that Kirk Cousins doesn't have. So, like, if you just want to stash a Trey Lance and just continue to play Stafford, then I don't mind that idea. If you have Kirk Cousins as your second quarterback, you're never going to play him over Stafford more than likely. Just outside of a bye week, and then knock on wood, but like if Stafford was to get banged up. So if it's one quarterback league, I don't hate stashing Trey Lance for the upside and just letting Cousins go. What do you think, Dub?
Yeah, with the one quarterback league, I'm looking at the upside because Kirk Cousins in a one quarterback league is probably similar to two or three other guys that are sitting there in free agency right now. Unless every team out there is rostering two quarterbacks, like you were probably looking at Kirk. I was personally, and I'm assuming that it was the case in a lot of leagues out there, comparing Kirk Cousins to guys like Derek Carr, who went undrafted that people might not have, bid on yet.
Mm-hmm.
There were two or three quarterbacks in there that I thought were kind of in the same territory. Even a Joe Burrow, I was saying coming into the year, and I think is still true, is can get the volume. I think Cincinnati's willing to lean on him. I think season long he's somebody I might put in that category. So I guess what I'm saying is Cousins is replaceable, and I think if Trey Lance hits, he's not.
Yeah, that's fair. Totally fair. If Cousins has shown us anything over his entire career, it's that he is irreplaceable. Not bad. And has some good weeks, but so you've got Barkley, Mixon, Patterson, Fournette, Cooper, probably as an Amari Cooper, A-Rob, Sutton, Ruggs. Should I trade Fant for McLaurin? What? Or toss in Fournette or Patterson for Gibson? Um,
You want the receiver, I think.
if you can trade Fant for McLaurin, I mean, I would jump all over that if that's like some sort of straight up trade that someone's willing to make with you, and then just go pick up a tight end off waivers, like one of these guys that we've been talking about. Go pick up one of them.
Yeah, not Knox or Schultz. If you make that move and add a Knox or Schultz, you're looking pretty mean.
Yeah. Barkley, Mixon, Patterson. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
Cooper, A-Rod.
last comment
Yeah,
there. Schultz is behind Fant, so you're good.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you can do a Fant for McLaurin, your wide receiver group does need a little bit more help than the running back group, and so yeah, I really like the Fant for McLaurin if you can make that a thing.
Yeah.
But
And I
tossing
mean,
in Fournette, Patterson for Gibson, I also don't mind. I mean, I would do that too, but I just with your roster, I would go with McLaurin.
well, and keeping in mind too, like relying on a guy like Schultz is good while it's working, but like that's also something we expect. We're hoping that he ends up being good for the rest of the year. That's obviously like what we would like to see happen. But like streaming tight end, it could be a fluid situation, I guess is what I'm saying. Like right now, these guys are looking great, but that's also a benefit to you if you play it the right way too. Like if you're seeing the wrong things out of Schultz and you want to move on, like Fant's kind of in that territory now. I don't think he was in draft during the draft season, but like Fant's faded a bit. Like I just got a trade offer that included Fant. Like somebody was trying to get rid of him in our league, so I think people are getting down on him too. And
Well, he had the touchdown this past week, but the week before that, he had 3 targets, 2 catches. Like, to me, there's no clear distinction between a Noah Fant and a Dalton Schultz. Like, I don't feel like there's either one of them can have a good or a bad week, and they're both susceptible to either. And Schultz has shown enough to this point where, like, if I got both and somebody wants a fan off of me, I'll trade that dude and play Schultz. I don't like. To me, it makes no difference. I wouldn't care. you know,
right,
just the same as if somebody wanted Schultz instead of Fant and I played Fant instead. That's fine too. you know, that's how I would look at it. All right, that was cool. We got behind for a minute. There was a lot going on there.
yeah, it was cool.
I got a solid question for you guys.
Yeah.
Yo, what's up, Cameron?
What up? Who's the 2 fantasy running back in the league right now? And
Who's what?
the number 2 most fantasy points in
I-
the running back position.
Considering you're asking the question, I think I probably already know the answer.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Cordell Patterson.
You want to know something even better that'll like just blow? I mean, it probably won't blow your mind because you guys have looked at these things a little bit, but the dude has 5 total touchdowns, but one of them is a rushing touchdown
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
running back.
Yeah, you know what's crazy, even crazier too, is in that game this past week, he had those 3 touchdowns.
Mhm.
I think he played I don't have the number right in front of me. Like 20 something snaps, low 20s in snaps.
Yeah,
Like,
he just
was
touches the ball when he's out there.
Yeah, it's just like he's out there and you get the ball.
Yeah, dude, it's insane. Insane.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for stopping by the stream, Brad.
Cordell Patterson. I don't know why, but Austin Eckler is listed as he's in the ranking, if that's what you're looking at, position ranking, as 18, and he scored 2.5 more points than Patterson. So there's a bit of a glitch there. I don't want my boy Austin Eckler to be overlooked here. The man had a game last week.
No, I wasn't looking at like anyone's actual ranking. I went to my fantasy team and I just clicked on him, and through 4 weeks he's position rank as number 2.
Yeah. No, yeah, I see that. It's crazy.
Mm.
I mean, if we had to make a guess, who was the first one to say the name Cordero Patterson out here?
I
what?
mean, I definitely seen him, but that is only as a Atlanta fan. I didn't see him as a fantasy relevant player.
Oh,
But like even week 1, when I was like looking at some of these teams, I was like, Cordero Patterson is the backup of Mike Davis. Like, okay, he's never gonna play. Mike Davis all day.
Hey, he's not backing up no more.
No, bro.
That's
No.
wild.
I mean, he technically still is the backup. He's just more of a role player.
well, listen, I got another question for you guys.
Yes.
Since we're talking about how high rank of your running back is, where's your superstar 6th-round rookie tight end at right now for tight ends?
Oof,
Oh.
not looking good, man.
Oh.
That's at number 20.
Yeah, yeah, that is number 20.
But if
Hunter
you
Henry
look
has
at him,
more points than him.
yeah, no, this is true.
Shots
I'm not
fired.
hating on that. Hey. We all knew this was going to happen. We
Tyler
all knew that there was
Higbee,
possibility.
Jawan Johnson. Max Williams, CJ Uzama.
Uzama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, here though. Here. Let me just throw this stat at you though. He's
Now
only
it's
had
getting real.
one. No. I'm not pushing for him. He is on my team. Like I'm not gonna trade him just because he is an Atlanta Falcon, and you know what I mean. Like he's on my team. I gotta run him. But here's a crazy stat for you. Out of all of those, he's only had one game with less than 6 targets.
Yeah. I wanted Pitts too. Like we talked about that. So like I'm just giving you shit, but
No, yeah,
I did
100%.
watch a decent amount of the Falcons game this week, and some of the looks he was getting were so forced that it was like rough.
Yeah,
Like I
that's what I'm
saw him,
saying. I
he
mean,
ran like a skinny post on a like a I don't know, whatever in goal situation from the like 10 or 12. I think there was a penalty that knocked him back a little bit. And Matt Ryan was just like, yeah, I see you with a linebacker underneath and a safety over the top, and I'm just throwing it there.
Now,
yeah. So
I
I
tell
mean,
you,
the
you know
targets
what's
haven't
hurting
been the
him?
greatest, but I mean, overall, the dude's still he's like a Cordell Patterson in that, and like he still has his role.
Well,
He's not like a bum. You know what I mean?
what's
Yeah.
kind of funny about Patterson is not only has he taken away from the Mike Davis workhorse that people were hoping, but he's also like he's dipping into the targets enough that he's also taking targets away from Pitts.
He
Something else
is.
that everybody was, because the argument for Mike Davis was kind of the same with Pitts. It was like, well, they got Calvin Ridley and then who? They got nobody. Well, it
Right.
turns out they got a Cordell Patterson who was out there catching the ball from the backfield.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
Crazy.
I kind of dig it, man, because if Cordero Patterson does get eaten up one game, and I play him and Pitts, I mean, odds are Pitts is probably gonna have a better game. You know what I mean? One
Yeah.
of the two are probably gonna be decent
We got
week in
another
and
one
week out.
here. Antonio Brown, Sanders, and Schultz for Jamal Williams and Deontay Johnson. Antonio Brown, Sanders, and Schultz for Jamal Williams and Johnson. I really want Johnson, and none of these players are starting. Or should I throw in Marvin Jones and one of these guys?
Hey, I like some AB, man.
So Marvin Jones gets an uptick with
Chark.
the DJ Chark injury out for the year, so he certainly gets an uptick. I don't know that there's enough difference between a Marvin Jones, a Sanders, and AB. I think for that group, you should just trade away the one or two that you yourself don't like as much, because I think all those guys are comparable. And I don't think there's like one you can pick that would be a worse choice than the others. I guess is kind of where I'm getting at. Like I kind of like all those guys. And trading Schultz away, maybe we already went over this, but I assume you already have a tight end and you don't need Schultz. So with that being said, then I mean, yeah, like Deontay Johnson is the best wide receiver of all those guys for sure. And I can totally understand why you'd want him on your team, and I would be fine with that. You're sort of trading. This is the type of trades we like to make. We like to trade 2-for-1s or 3-for-2s or something like that, where you're trading more players, but you're getting the best ones in return. So it's the right idea. What's happening to Calvin? Calvin Ridley? Thought he was gonna. Yeah, I don't know. I'll let Dub talk about Calvin Ridley because he's got him as a keeper.
I mean, I think the offensive line for Atlanta's been a big factor. The easy the easy place to point your finger is going to be that Calvin Ridley's the number one and he's struggling to take on that role, but that's not true because Julio missed some time last year and Calvin Ridley was great. So that's not the only factor. I think there's kind of like I was talking with Pitts. I think the quality of the targets has been pretty poor, and I mean, Cam, I think Cam is gonna say Matt Ryan, but I think some of it is also the amount of time that Matt Ryan has to feel comfortable and throw the ball. So I think it's more of a line issue than anything else. I am concerned with Calvin Ridley's lack of involvement in the red zone, though, because that specific look that I just mentioned for Kyle Pitts in the red zone, that was Calvin Ridley territory. So that's going to hurt Calvin Ridley's value quite a bit if he's not getting those short yardage, those red zone, deep into the red zone kind of looks. It is a big deal, but Calvin Ridley's been productive enough that I'm still running him out there, getting the points that he is putting out there and expecting more at some point. I know it's a little disappointing, though. The red zone looks are my biggest concern. The rest of it, I think, just kind of is what it is.
Yeah. My thought on it is Calvin Ridley was sold I'll just do it real quick too and we can get to the next one here. Calvin Ridley was sold in leading up to the season in the fantasy drafts as one of the very top 5 wide receivers, and I don't know if I really like Calvin Ridley a lot. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a wide receiver 1. I don't know if I personally was sold on top 5 from the jump, but I do think better days are ahead for Calvin Ridley, and I mean you have him, so this doesn't apply to you, but I think for people out there he could even potentially be a bit of a buy low because I know people are a little frustrated with him, and he still is a really good player. What do I do with Chris Carson? Currently 0-4 at Mahomes, Carson, Edmonds, D-Hop, Allen Robinson, A.J. Brown, and Waller. So you've had some unfortunate circumstances go on here. You've had A.J. Brown banged up. Allen Robinson's been really disappointing. Hopkins has had 2 good games and 2 not so good games. It's Edmonds is a nice player. It's nice that you have him to. Carson and Edmonds, are those your two running backs? Yeah, I can see how that's tough. You can't really do much with them. That's the thing. I mean, I doubt that you're going to be able to consider some sort of trade and get anything back in return that you're happy with. More than likely, make moves on waivers. I mean, maybe look at a Damien Williams, somebody like that's out there right now that's going to be out on the field for a few weeks while Montgomery is dealing with his injury. And I really think you should also look and consider an Alex Collins, because if Chris Carson's injury turns out to be more serious than we think it is right now, then Alex Collins is going to be the next guy. It doesn't look like it's Penny. It looks like it's Alex Collins, and I think he could actually be productive if he was to fill in for Chris Carson. At this point, it might be somebody you should maybe stash on the end of your bench just in case. It's a tough situation, man, when you have these guys that you were expecting more out of and they're just not getting it done. You're kind of stuck with them because you can't trade them because then you're not going to get the value. And you don't love the situation while it's happening, but you kind of just have to ride those out. It sucks. The only thing you can do is package guys for a trade.
Yeah, and I mean, unless you get lucky, I really like what Josh was saying about hitting waivers up and trying to make some moves, but I guess to just take that a step further, like, it's going to be with the intent of creating some value. Like, you can generate value through waivers and free agency, but you have to pick the right guys. You have to hit on more than you miss, and you're looking for the right kinds of guys. Being 0-4 takes some options out of your hands. Like, if I'm looking at your roster, I'm looking at Allen Robinson and A.J. Brown with the injury, and I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to get out of these two guys, in the next 2-3 weeks. And I think for me, that's going to put more value into somebody like a Hunter Renfrow, or like I'm looking for a hot hand if I'm you, and it might not be somebody that I think is going to be like a stud or have the most upside like 6 weeks from now. But if there's a guy sitting out there like that has been putting up some points that you feel like you could get 15-20 points this week or next week, Like, plug that guy in until you feel better about, some of the guys, Robinson or Brown, because you're on the hot seat at 0-4 too. So, I think there's a chance for those guys to turn around, but you don't want to wait for that with them in your starting lineup necessarily either. So,
Something you can also do too with Patrick Mahomes and that name that he carries. If people in your league really love their quarterbacks, then I imagine Mahomes probably you can trade for a premium. And I don't hate taking a perceived like downgrade at the quarterback position. If it's a Tom Brady coming off of his first like average game, and we don't expect that to continue. If it's a Tom Brady, if it's a Justin Herbert, if it's Russell Wilson, like some of these guys, I imagine it's not going to be Josh Allen or Kyler Murray. You're not going to be able to get one of them. But if you can find a team that has a nice solid running back, or even just another like really good receiver that you can plug in your lineup, and you can trade Mahomes and get their quarterback back, and then also though trade one of your random guys and get an upgrade at that position at the running back or the wide receiver position and take that slight downgrade at quarterback, I would totally do something like that if you could. Just to help you fill in for this A.J. Brown being gone, Allen Robinson being disappointing, Chris Carson's been disappointing, and now he's banged up. Like, you're going to need to fill those holes. And if you don't have anybody on your bench to do that with, then I would take a perceived downgrade at quarterback if you can look at something like that too. Thing is with quarterback positions, like any of these guys can have 20-point weeks, 30-point weeks any week. It happens. Like Mahomes as a whole for the season, I think he might be the quarterback one, but he's had at least a couple of these weeks where he has not been one of the top scoring quarterbacks. And then he's just had a couple of really good weeks. So it's not like you're getting the quarterback one every week.
Yeah. Yeah, and just keep trying to generate value. I mean, sometimes you just are the first on a guy, and it works out. I mean, sometimes you just get lucky, but definitely, I'm guessing you've got some room to shape up your bench a little bit too and help out with that. It'll be a task, man, but it's happened. I've had some pretty bad starts that have turned out to be pretty good years overall, so just stick with it. Don't feel I mean, you got to feel some sense of urgency. You got to feel that like I need to make some moves. I need to make this work, but don't like totally panic and do something that that you don't feel good about yet either. Allen Robinson, I'm probably, because we were talking about the value, like moving him is probably a disservice to you, even though it sucks that he's on your team. Like you hold on to him, and then when he starts playing well again, like you have him, and when you're ready to start him, he's there.
I feel like he's just too good for this to be this way all year with him. Of course, it's all directly tied to the quarterback play, and that's just something we can't really speak on for the future.
Dude, Allen Robinson was good with Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky, let's be honest.
I was going to say, what sucks is that this is kind of the story of this guy. He's just never had a quarterback.
He had like 3 catches for, I don't remember, I don't have it in front of me, but 60, 70 something yards this past week. 2 of those catches were great catches. Like he had one where it was right on the end of it was actually a really nice throw, but it was on the end of the sidelines, and then he got popped and he jumped up and he's flexing on 3 guys. Like that Allen Robinson is still that dude. He just needs the ball thrown his way. He just needs those opportunities.
Yep. We both agreed last year, like he's real again, because last year was his first year after that injury, and we didn't know what we were gonna get, and it was like he's back.
Yeah, I feel bad for that guy. He'd have put up some real great numbers with the right quarterback throughout these years.
While we're talking about receivers with bad quarterbacks, Kenny Galladay still sucks.
Well played.
He had a pretty decent game, didn't he? Put up some numbers.
He did, with nobody else out there. Shepard, Slayton gone.
Yeah.
He sucks. I honestly, like, if I own him, I'm still so far out on him. I'm trading him right now. Like, hey, you want 6 for 100?
Oh, I would too. I don't know. You're not going to find anybody that's going to buy into that, though, I don't think.
Worth trying.
Be some, like, huge Giants fan.
Yeah.
Kenny Galladay, that's wide receiver 1 all day.
Yeah. We're paying him like $20 million a year. He's got to be good. I think we touched on all of our updates. The chat's been really, really nice.
Yeah.
Cam, you got
Yeah, I think we
anybody
got
you're
through
looking
everybody.
at? Any free agents, waivers?
Yeah, Cam, who are you looking to put a bid on tonight?
Eh, don't be playing. I'm trying to get your guys' secrets.
Yeah, jump
Yeah.
in here just in time.
Yeah. Listen, you got the third highest scoring running back off of waivers 2 weeks ago. What are you doing? What are you working on?
Are you subscribed? Are you
Don't worry
subscribed to
about
the
me.
channel?
Hey, trust me, that wasn't from you goons. That was just in the nick of being a Falcons fan.
Well, listen, this week I think it's totally
And
worth
having
you
I
spending
was
half your fab on Latavius Murray.
I was gonna say that, and having Mike Davis as my running back, that helped with the quarter of Patterson situation.
I mean, you're cutting Mike Davis this week.
I'm not cutting him.
Bullshit.
I'm not cutting him.
Bullshit. You're keeping Mike Davis?
I'm keeping Mike Davis over Sony Michel on my team.
You're cutting Sony Michel.
I don't know.
All
Might
right.
as
I
well.
don't know.
Load.
Mike Davis is
I mean-
healthy and he's not doing anything.
Okay, and Sony Michel's healthy and he ain't doing anything.
Sony Michel had negative points this past week.
Yes, he
You know
did.
why? Because he fucking sucks.
I hate it. I'm not a
Been
fan
saying
myself.
it.
I just don't see any. I don't see any. After this last couple weeks, I just don't see any sense of trust that I could have in Mike Davis.
No, but I mean, he did have one catch for a touchdown, which again, yeah, that's terrible, and that was his like 8 fantasy points, sure. But overall, he gets one more of those, and teams are eventually going to start sweating. We're gonna have to make some trades out there soon in that league.
Start Damien Williams this week. You can, yes. Especially if you're hurting at running back or if you're hurting at your flex position. He did get banged up in that game too, so you just have to pay attention to that and make sure that he is actually playing this week, but it sounds like he'll be all right. He's going to be I'm not going to call him a workhorse because we were talking about Damien Williams earlier. I think there's a possibility that Khalil Herbert, the other running back for Chicago, gets some work. So I don't know that Damien Williams is just going to be some like workhorse that gets 25 touches. But he will be the main running back and he will be involved in the pass game too. So yeah, I think you can play him. Just temper expectations. Don't listen to some of these guys hyping him up so much that don't think you're getting some sort of RB1 pickup here. But I do think he's a nice plug and play. Got Mixon and McCaffrey. That's tough, man. I have Mixon too. It sucks. That's a tough break when you lose those guys. You know, if you lost Mixon, I imagine Damien Williams is going, unless you've got like number 1 on a waiver priority or something like that, and you know you can lock Damien Williams in for sure if you're not in that situation. Samaje Perine is another guy you can look at who is Mixon's backup that, you know, they're playing Green Bay this week. I'm not afraid of that matchup. And if you can't get Damien Williams, Perine's a guy you can look at.
Yeah, the added value with owning Mixon, I see that.
Yeah, just because you have Mixon, that way it's a, you know, it's direct 1-to-1 there. I prefer Damien Williams over Perine because Damien Williams should be the main guy for Chicago for the next month or so until Montgomery comes back. But yeah, you could do worse. Start Cordell Patterson over Williams. That's an interesting one.
No. And
You
the reason
wouldn't?
why, couple reasons. Watching the Jets game a little bit last week, if I had to pick a strength of that defense, it was their linebackers. They had a guy. So like they have CJ Mosley, who was good and had an injury. He played for the Ravens for a while. He's a pretty solid guy. But they had this other guy, and I don't even know his first name. I'll pull the roster up. Okay. Anyway, they have a linebacker that was flying around the field last week, and I mean he was just wrecking the offense. Freaked me out.
I saw that too, and I can't remember his name.
Quincy Williams.
Yes.
So he's a freak. I saw that. The other thing is it's in London, and I do not like starting guys in that London game. It's a 9:30 a.m. U.S. time start. Those games very commonly end up being like total duds, like really low scoring, slow starting. So like
Who's playing?
the Falcons are playing in London.
Falcons are?
Yeah.
Oh, bro. Ridley and Pitts starts.
Oh boy.
And Cordero Pitt. Who are they playing in London? I'm sorry.
They're playing Wait. Week 5.
Jets.
Yeah. Yeah, they're playing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jags and Falcons.
But that's it. It's mostly the London thing, but that linebacker for New York was flying all over the field too. I think that would be bad news for Patterson. And that's my personal opinion. But that's where my mind goes. Like I just saw this dude flying around the field. I think that I said what I had to say.
I'm torn on that one. That's a close call, so I'll default to Dubs because I'm not sure who I would pick in that situation. It's just it would be hard for me to sit Patterson right now. Not that I don't know. Like we talk about riding waves, and I feel like that's one of them. But you can't expect certainly not expecting a 3-touchdown game.
What? I'm sorry.
It's true. No, there's something to be said about his production riding that hand. I mean, he's the number 3 running back in the league. I guess if I can just amend it, I'm going to say
2.
like he's number 3. Austin Eckler's above him. Go look it up.
And fantasy points scored?
Ah,
Yeah, he is.
Dude, I don't get it. Why does he say number 2 on my sheet?
listen, I ain't saying it again.
Okay,
You just go
I gotta
look it
look
up.
this.
You go look it
I'm gonna-
up.
I'm gonna go look it up. just fix it.
You probably want to start Patterson, I guess is the best way to say it. If there's a situation right now where I don't start him, those are 2 factors that I think weigh pretty heavy. So I get it. I guess I'm not, I don't know. I
It's a
guess I'm
close
saying
one,
I
man.
feel like I
It
might have
is.
went kind of quick to that, but also like it's never easy to commit to something you haven't seen yet, right? Like Patterson's been on fire.
I think that's it for me. Wanting to see it with Damien Williams. I mean, if you were in a position where you didn't have another decent option, then you would play Damien Williams, and that would be fine. I don't know for sure what it is. We're assuming Damien Williams is going to get enough work to make it worth it. But we don't really know that.
Can I backtrack enough to say that if it's PPR, you go Patterson?
Sure, that's fair.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
That's what I'm doing. But I do hate London games that much though. Like I've been burned
Yeah.
on them a few times, and they, like people that have been on rolls, teams that have been very good, go out there, and it is just a nightmare.
I know. I can't remember offhand exactly, but I know I've had players in that game too, and it has not been good. Which seems like it goes that way.
I thought Jacksonville was supposed to be playing out there. Weren't they trying to
Said all the booty.
groom?
Put another strip on the Bobby.
There was a rumor like last year or the year before that they were trying to groom Jacksonville to like move to London. Like they were just such a bad team, and
Yeah. I think it might have been Jacksonville. Hey, do you guys like that London you played at? you guys want to stay around here?
you like putting gravy on your fries? Oh no, that's Canada. Man,
Yep.
All right.
you think that's an I mean, if we're talking about that game though, which like whatever, but kind of a matchup for both teams. It's an opportunity to see what some of these situations might look like, right? Like we were just talking about Elijah Moore versus Jamison Crowder. Like it might be a good opportunity to see what the team wants to do with that. I'm excited to see Michael Carter Jr. with a matchup, that
Mm-hmm.
potentially favorable matchup. Like there's some things that I'm intrigued with in that. I'm hoping Ridley has a decent game.
Yeah. There's a lot to pay attention to in that game. I think Carter can have a good game. potentially in a matchup like that. Chenault, Mooney, or Moss from waivers.
Chenault, baby. I like Moss though too. I do, but Chenault's had some targets recently too.
I think I would probably go Chenault as well. Mooney just had a massive game, but he also could just disappear next week too. It's possible. That is, if you're good at running back and you don't need Moss, then I think I like Chenault. It's him and Marvin Jones now, so.
Yeah, Chenault was already looking like a pretty nice piece, and then that injury adds to that.
Yeah.
I think because we haven't seen that play out yet, Moss might have a little more value right now, but I think you're going to get more value from a Chenault. We're down on Buffalo's backfield, but Moss has had a couple pretty good games too.
He has. And he may continue to do so. It's just I rode that all year last year dealing with that Buffalo running back, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, at least last year, it is not a fun ride to be involved in. There's just no rhyme or reason for what they do. It doesn't between Moss and Singletary. Like game flow, situations in the game, where they're at with the ball. Like there's just no rhyme or reason
backfield
for what they do and when they do it.
Yeah, they just play them. It's just like a couple other teams in the league though.
Yeah. With the exception that Moss seems to have one thing that is the most valuable, and it's the short yardage goal line. That seems to be his. Well, what do you think, Dub?
Yeah, it's probably about as good a time to call it as any. We touched on all the players we wanted to. We got a pretty good amount of chat in here. Another nice little stream. Had some names that we recognized. A few of them.
Yeah, a few. Yeah.
Pretty pumped about that. Yeah. Had another little technical issue, but that seemed to work itself out after the reset. So appreciate you guys coming back or popping in after the reset. That was cool. We will see how these waivers play out. I have a few claims in. I haven't really done too much of that yet, but I made a couple small like $0 bids that I was pretty happy with, and I'm looking to spend a little money this week.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Listen, I'm gonna go lock up Todd Gurley. I heard he's gonna be working out for a couple teams this week. Yeah, he's looking at Baltimore. He's looking at Baltimore. I thought that was good for
Hey, we called that, man.
What's that? Oh, Gurley?
We did, bro.
No, he's not. He's not working out. I was trolling.
Oh, I was like, bro, I really did call that at the beginning of the year, though.
Can we
Cameron had that claim in already.
Yeah, he's clicking right now. That's why he didn't respond.
I'm playing Rocket League.
So I guess one thing that did cross my mind, if you want to spend just an extra like 2 minutes on.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some teams that have some running back needs that, like, there were some obvious ones like Baltimore, right? But there's a couple teams that have a running back need that might be a little more pressing than we might have thought. Like, so the Raiders, they had that game with Peyton Barber, and Gruden said he's big on Peyton Barber. Whatever, that didn't seem to happen this week, but I know Jacobs was out there too. But there's a couple other teams, like, depends on how Carolina feels about Chuba. I think they're okay there. What else was there? There were like 2 or 3 teams that stood out to me. I mean, maybe Chicago, if they feel like that is something they need to do. Philly's had kind of a weird situation. I'm just kind of throwing teams out there that I could see wanting to add somebody. Maybe the Jets, if they could get someone they felt good enough about. But anyway, I'm trying to gauge, like, we're on week 5 now. and there was a 6-game suspension issued to Darius Geis. And when I read that, like at the end of the preseason, like my first thought was he's going to play football this year. I think there's at least a handful of teams out there that would have interest in him. Even like the Rams, if they wanted a better insurance policy than Michelle, who hasn't really done too much with the opportunities. Like I just see these opportunities here. Maybe the Seahawks, because Penny hasn't been healthy in a year and a half, and they want somebody that can do a little bit of both. I don't know, but like, does Darius Geis play football this year? Like, if I remember right, the charges were dropped, right?
I think so. Yeah. For some reason, when you mentioned Seattle, I'm like that. Actually, I could see that. Seems like they're always willing to add a running back.
It's true.
Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we get a notification here one day soon. Good old sleeper app. Darius Geis works out for Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, if he goes to a team like Seattle, I'm interested. Honestly, like most of the teams except for the Jets that I mentioned, I think I'd be interested in him being there. Or in the Bears, I wouldn't want, because I think Montgomery would still be involved as soon as he came back enough to where that's not.
He would. He'd probably go right back to his workhorse regular role, I would expect. I don't know. I mean, let's get Marlon Mack traded. Let's get one of these teams to go. Let's get Marlon Mack somewhere.
Yeah.
You see how they activated and gave him 10 touches? They're definitely putting him out on display.
For sure. They're trying to prove he's healthy.
Exactly. It's like, well played. Well played, Indianapolis.
That kind of tells me, too, or tells us, like, that there's teams aren't feeling a desperate need for a running back, which could be a barometer for, like, I'm surprised Adrian Peterson, Todd Gurley are still sitting out there. Like, I get that maybe they're not like guys you would sign as like features or game changers, right? But like there's a role out there for them somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just weird. I want to see Darius Geis play football this year because I want to see if he's good.
Right.
Football only. I'm not touching any of the other stuff. I'm just saying charges were dropped. The dude served a suspension anyway. Like, if that's how it's going to be, even if it was settled, that's between them at that point, in my opinion. Like, they figured it out. Let's play football. I want to know if he's good.
Not like there hasn't been a million other players that haven't got to bounce back and play after some dumb shit.
True. So true. Richard Sherman just signed with the Bucks. Do you remember that meltdown he had at his in-laws' house?
I do.
Like, did we forget about that? Because that happened.
No, they brought it up on the broadcast.
Did they?
Oh, dude, yeah, that's such a Bucks thing to do, though. Yeah, I mean, look at they're the ones that went and signed AB.
Yep. Yeah. AB's like, but I got charges. They were like, no problem.
They're like, don't worry, man. We got this. We got Tom Brady now.
Yeah. No, Tom knows the cop. Tom knows the FBI guys that are working on your thing. Yeah, he knows them personally. Yeah, he sent him a couple footballs he signed. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, they're coming to the barbecue next weekend.
Yeah. They were the ones that went to Tom's house when he lost his phone on Deflategate.
Oh. I mean, it's a good point though. There's stuff that happens. You'd think that if there was a guy that was legally innocent, like there should be another opportunity somewhere. He's young and he was a stud in college.
Right. It'd be interesting. We'll see if he ends up getting worked out. I feel like that's one of those where he won't until somebody suffers some sort of running back injury and it's like mid or later season and then you see him come in.
Yeah.
Some teams just don't like taking on that type of PR if they really don't have to.
Yeah, I get it. And it's not like it's a guarantee that he's going to be a difference maker anyway, so.
Dude, I felt pretty rough about my team, but as the season goes on, I'm feeling better and better.
About your fantasy team?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it was your probably. I
Yeah.
imagine it's Patterson because your running back was what you were trying to figure out.
Yeah. And now James Conner's finally getting his goal line looks, and they're finally using him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't love that situation, but I do have him on my team.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I got
All right.
Julio. That dude's out.
Let's I don't know if you guys knew or not. We're still live, so I'm gonna wrap this up.
Sorry.
No, it's not. No, I just so that we all know. But we're good. We'll wrap it up. We're gonna get back. Are we probably same time Sunday, right? Like the London game starts at 9:30. I'm not really trying to get ahead of that.
Me either.
Okay. So London game. Don't start your London players. The game's a joke anyway. That's how I feel about it.
Go Falcons.
Yeah, you're starting Calvin Ridley. Okay, you're starting Corey Davis. You're probably throwing Crowder out there because we told you to. Like, rest of it, fuck them.
Wow. That's like all my team.
Cordell
My
Patterson.
favorites.
Cordell Patterson start worthy. Okay, I'm down with that too.
All right, thank you.
I have to
Yep.
like learn that. Like Cordell Patterson's real and I'm saying it, but like to what extent it hasn't computed yet. Like you have to start Cordell Patterson right now if you have him.
And listen, if and if you got Kyle Pitts, I mean, you could always add a Hunter Henry before the game, and you could play him instead.
Yep, Dawson Knox,
Aye,
Dalton
aye.
Schultz,
Got him.
CJ Uzoma.
Just
I don't
wait.
even
he
know how
was
to
just-
say his name yet.
Yeah, I know. That's a tough
Uzama.
one.
Uzama. CJ Uzama, he's outscoring Pitts. Put him in your lineup.
Just wait, man. Kyle Pitts is waiting for that London game for his first touchdown.
He's going for $120 and 2 touchdowns now.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. Sign me up for that.
He's going to do it for the jersey sales alone. On that rookie
buy a
deal,
jer-
trying to get that money.
I'll tell you what, man. Kyle Pitts scores a touchdown in London. I'm buying a jersey.
You won't.
Bet.
Okay, it's on stream. It's recorded right here. If
Let's
Kyle
go. You
Pitts
guys-
scores a touchdown in London, Cameron's buying a jersey.
Let's go. And I'm not talking no fake jersey. I'm talking authentic, game worn Kyle Pitts.
All right.
Let's go.
All right. Lock it in.
Man. Lock it.
Locked.
Anybody still hanging out, we appreciate it. If you want any if you want notifications when we go live, hit that sub button. Just get that update whenever we go live. Jump in with us, chat with us, ask some questions, talk some smack. We're here for all of it. So appreciate the love, appreciate all the comments again tonight, guys. Again, Shamar Sam sub tonight. I see that on my list. I appreciate it. Some of them don't show up on my list. I don't know if that's your guys' account settings or what, but if I ever don't say it, it's only because it's not showing up on my feed. But anybody else out there, we appreciate it. We appreciate the love. We get off stream and we talk about like how pumped we are about all the feedback and the love we're getting. So it's real. We love doing it. We love having you here. So thanks.